Welcome back, viewers. Joining me today on News Review is the U.S. Ambassador to the Gambia, Ambassador Richard Carl Paschall. Welcome to the FAT Network, Mr. Ambassador.
Thank you so much for the invitation. Very nice to see you.
Thank you very much. Now, COVID-19 has defied even the most advanced of nations, including your country, the United States. But the coming of a new administration seemed to have yielded some progressive, noticeable changes in the fight against the pandemic. What does this say about political or governmental commitment, if you like, in trying times like these?
I think that what we can take away from this is that this is a shared commitment. It's a shared burden. A pandemic such as COVID-19 does not affect only one country or one city or one village. It in fact affects the world. And it's really mandatory that we all pull together and work together, follow the very best advice of the scientists and medical professionals, do the very best we can out of compassion for others to try to mitigate the effects of this virus. And you have the experts here in the Gambia, the Honorable Minister of Health, our friends at the World Health Organization, the US CDC. We all have pretty much the same recommendations. And now the most important thing, especially with the Delta variant of the COVID-19 virus, is getting vaccinated. Vaccines are safe, they're effective, and I want to emphasize that these vaccines are the very same vaccines that are being administered in the United States. We've had 15 million or more Americans vaccinated with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. It's a single-dose vaccine, and it is more than 99% effective at preventing serious illness or other health complications from the virus. And so I really do encourage everyone to follow the advice of the Ministry of Health and the World Health Organization and the African Union Centers for Disease Control and get to the vaccination centers and get vaccinated.
One of the biggest challenges in fighting against the coronavirus pandemic is having to deal with the conspiracy theories. But before we get to those theories, give us a background to the whole Johnson & Johnson vaccine and how it came about.
Sure. In May of this year, President Biden delivered a speech wherein he said he wanted to make the United States the arsenal of vaccines for the world, to ensure that there was equity and access to the vaccines. And he committed at that time an initial pledge of 80 million vaccines to be distributed around the world. Within the African Union countries, this is being coordinated with the African Union and deliveries through the Gavi COVAX initiative. And the allocation for the Gambia was 302,400 doses. With last night's delivery of the second tranche of those doses, we have met that commitment. Now, in addition, President Biden committed at the G7 meeting in the UK just a few weeks ago an additional 500 million doses of vaccine to be distributed around the world, again, looking at equity and access to vaccines. And the G7 countries, the other G7 countries, matched that pledge of 500 million doses. So that's 1 billion doses of vaccine that will be made available by the United States and the G7 countries to countries around the world. We don't yet know exactly how many of those doses will come to the Gambia, but we do expect that there will be an allocation in the very near future. I would like to emphasize that there are other partners involved in this. The United States is not doing this alone by any stretch of the imagination. In particular, here in the Gambia, obviously under the very capable leadership of the Minister of Health and the vaccination teams, with the strong partnership of UNICEF in particular and the World Health Organization, as well as funding from the World Bank for various aspects of vaccine delivery and administration. So it really is a big team effort. I also want to emphasize that the Gambian government, in addition, has arranged for the procurement of an additional 266,000 Johnson & Johnson doses. On top of that, the regular COVAX allocation program is also bringing in additional doses of vaccine. The United States government pledged, as you know, $2 billion early this year to support the Gavi COVAX initiative, and an additional $2 billion promised, looking for matching contributions from other donors. So this is a tremendous global effort to defeat COVID-19, which is impacting the entire world.
Right. Now, it is common knowledge that the United States government and other partners, like you mentioned, is supporting the Gambian people in the area of vaccination, specifically the Johnson & Johnson. Now, with a few orders like the Pfizer vaccine, a curious mind might ask, why this one in particular, given the myriad of conspiracy theories surrounding the coronavirus pandemic and, vaccinations thereof?
Quite honestly, I think there's a lot of disinformation out there about all of the vaccines. And unfortunately, too many people are listening to people who have no idea and are not scientific experts. I asked someone the other day, why would you listen to someone on social media who is opining that has no expertise in this field? And they don't have a good answer for that. This is a novel coronavirus. What that means is we've never seen a virus like this, exactly like this before. So our response has had to have been nimble. We've had to learn from things and adjust our approach to this as time went on. The fact of the matter is Johnson & Johnson is safe and effective. As I noted, it is fully authorized for use by the FDA, or Emergency Use Authorization. It's endorsed by the World Health Organization, and the Gambian Medicines Control Agency, in fact, has also endorsed its use. Safely administered to millions and millions of people in the United States and around the world, continues to be administered today in the United States. And so I do encourage people, this is a safe and effective vaccine.
Now, what lessons are there that the Gambia can draw from the U.S. in the crusade against the coronavirus pandemic, given that your country, the United States, was at some point decimated by the virus, I mean, both economically and death-wise?
Yeah. Well, I think we all have learned just how important it is to be prepared for pandemics. In fact, the United States is investing significant amounts of development finance to develop on the African continent itself the ability to produce vaccines, not just to address the current COVID-19 outbreak, but to be prepared for future pandemics as well. In addition, for many, many years, the United States has supported the African Union CDC to develop the CDC's capacity to coordinate medical and health activities across the African continent. We will continue to do that. We are very strong supporters of the AU CDC, and that we're very passionate about that. And then finally, President Biden also committed quite a bit of funding to support countries in their response to the COVID pandemic. Over $500 million has been, over $200 million has been spent across sub-Saharan Africa, assisting African countries in that response. And so we will continue to work with our African partners across the African continent to address the specific needs here in Africa, but understanding this is within the context of the global pandemic. So again, the world is working together. We must work together to defeat this. I think one thing that we really have also learned is that in the era of social media, it is really challenging to counter the disinformation that is out there. And that's why it's so important for the news media such as Fatu Network to help us get the accurate information out to people and to answer questions. That's one of the most important things we can do.
You know what they say, that every crisis also offers an opportunity. Does the coronavirus pandemic present any such between Banjul and Washington in terms of our cooperations, especially when it comes to capacity building and training in the healthcare sector of this country, even especially at a time when it continues to be grappled by difficulties?
No, and thank you for that question. That's an excellent observation. It certainly has presented tremendous opportunities for us to broaden and strengthen our cooperation and coordination together, extending not just with healthcare and responding to COVID-19, but really more broadly between our two governments and between our two peoples, as well as the private sector, I would like to point out. The private sector plays a tremendous role in responding to crises such as this, and it's important for governments. And one thing we have learned, I should have said this earlier, one thing we've learned is that we have to enable and empower the private sector to sometimes help us find those solutions and empower them. These vaccines are not being manufactured by government laboratories. They are being manufactured by private pharmaceutical companies that invest in the research and development of the technology to be able to undertake this effort. They did get substantial financing from the United States government to help them defray the cost of developing these vaccines. But with that private sector knowledge and know-how, the wisdom and intelligence of the scientists and medical professionals that have pulled together shared information, we have been able to develop a vaccine that seriously mitigates the risk of serious health complications from this virus. I saw a study today, a news report about a study that said persons who are unvaccinated are 25 times more likely to have serious health effects from COVID-19 than vaccinated persons are. That's really the only statistics you need to know about the importance of getting vaccinated.
Right. Now, most countries, including the Gambia, continue to deal with anti-vaxxers.
Yes.
And the United States, as we know, is
yes.
no exception.
Yes.
What message do you have to share with the Gambian people and the world at large as far as vaccinations are concerned? Because we have to agree, there is still some level of resistance.
Yes. No, thank you. Yes, we share this challenge. We share this struggle. I would just like to make, I think, probably 2 core points. The first one is the Gambia has an extremely high vaccination rate for just about every other disease that's out there that a vaccine is available for. Measles, mumps, smallpox, you name it. The Gambia has embraced and endorsed the use of vaccines generation after generation. As a global community, we did not get rid of smallpox, we did not get rid of measles, and we did not get rid of mumps, etc., by hoping that we would somehow evolve or the virus would evolve. And polio, I should mention, that came about because of the use of vaccines. Vaccines are tools to help humankind respond to these types of diseases, these viruses that help us defeat them. And so COVID-19 is just the latest example of that. Had it not been for the polio vaccine that came out, polio would still be a serious factor in the world today. But today it's extremely rare because of the fact that the vaccine was developed and implemented around the world. And so I would just encourage people, you really need to look at the facts behind this. So number one, vaccines have helped us eliminate the scourge of disease in so many ways around the world. So this vaccine is no different than those. And the second thing is, the statistics are just on the side of why vaccines are safe and effective. Are there sometimes side effects? Yes, of course there are. There are side effects oftentimes from common over-the-counter medications that people will take because the human body, in some ways, people respond in some ways very differently. But the incidence of complications from these vaccines is extremely low, and really no higher than any other common vaccine that's out there, and oftentimes common medications. So again, these are very safe, they are very effective vaccines. The facts are out there, and I would really just encourage people to listen to the experts.
Right. And just before I let you go, Mr. Ambassador, one thing I would like to mention is one of the misconceptions that people have is that, okay, this is a vaccine brought to us by the United States, but the one they're using over there is different from the one they are bringing to us. Yeah. What do you have to say about that?
No different.
Just to make it clear.
No different. Millions of Americans and millions of others around the world have gotten this very same vaccine. It is safe and effective, and I assure you, this is the same vaccine. There is no difference. So all of the disinformation and the false information, I've seen those same comments posted on social media in response to even our announcements from the embassy. I know in response to the announcements in the news stories on Fatu Network and other news sites, I've seen people post this type of disinformation. It simply is not true. These are safe and effective. And you know, I have to say now, my condolences go out to all of those people in the Gambia who are mourning the loss of loved ones. I just learned this morning of the loss of a relative of a friend of mine, and from COVID-19. The Delta variant is highly infectious, and it apparently manifests symptoms and far more severe symptoms far more rapidly than the other variants have thus far. So again, this is real. COVID-19 really does exist. It exists in the Gambia, despite the occasional comment on social media that it doesn't. And people are getting sick and dying in this country just as they are in my country. And so we have the answer. We have a tool in the vaccines that have been delivered to the Gambia to help people fight this battle and to win it. This country has a very high vaccination rate, as I said, with the onset of tourism season coming up in just a few months. I know the Gambia because it has such a high vaccination rate. It could be the vaccination rate leader, not only in West Africa, but all of Africa and probably around the world. People will take this on and get vaccinated. And just imagine the marketing tool that could be for the tourism industry here to say that this is the most highly vaccinated tourist destination for people to come and enjoy the hospitality and the culture of the Gambia and the Smiling Coast.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Paschall, for coming to the Fatu Network.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, viewers. That will be it for